From the wheelman for mob boss Joey Merlino to government witness, Roger Vella may go down as a blip on the screen in mob history, but his decision to go to work for the FBI sent rumblings through the local La Cosa Nostra. Here's Dave Stratweiser and the Inquirer's George Anastasia in tonight's Mob Talk.
Welcome to this week's edition of Mob Talk. I'm Dave Stratweiser.
And I'm George Anastasia with the Philadelphia Inquirer.
George, this week we're going to talk about Roger Vella, Joey Merlino's former driver, sort of a JV wise guy.
Yeah, and a cooperating witness who hasn't delivered everything law enforcement had hoped for, but I think there's still some potential there.
George, Roger Vella comes on the scene when Joey Merlino comes home from jail in 1994, and he's driving Roger's black Cadillac.
Right, and Roger at that point is a guy from the neighborhood, a young kid who idolizes Joey, and he's also involved in the drug business. I mean, there's no secret about that. He's ended up pleading guilty to a drug charge. And he becomes a sycophant for Merlino. He's always around Joey, running errands for Joey, doing this and doing that for Joey.
Driving him around town, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And he gets, at least on the fringes, I don't think he's ever in the inner circle, but he's on the fringes and he hears stuff and he knows stuff. And then he gets jammed up himself in kind of a bizarre murder connected to, the allegation is that Ralphie Mazzucca sent some people to Roger's house to rob him of drugs and money. And Roger's mother and father and sister are terrorized. They're tied up, they're beaten, whatever. And in retaliation, Roger lures Ralphie Mazzucca somewhere, apparently to his house, and kills him. And then he dumps Mazzucca's body down at the food distribution center, sets it on fire, and kind of in a bizarre homage to a famous mob hit, he stuffs some money in his undershorts. Now this goes back to when Antonio Caponegro was killed for killing Bruno. He's killed in New York, and they stuffed $20 bills in various parts of his body. In the Mazzucca situation, it's a 5 and 2 1, so it's very much less than that, but it's symbolic in that respect. And that murder becomes part of an investigation. At first, is it tied to the mob? We don't know. Is it a mob hit? Ultimately, Roger gives it up and confesses that he was involved, and it goes back to this vendetta involving the drug business.
But it also brings into the books here George Borghese. Somehow his name surfaces in that murder.
Immediately. I mean, during the days after the body is discovered, I know he's brought in for questioning. And there was a lot of discussion about, was he aware of what went down? Did he take part in it? There's never been an allegation, never been a formal charge that he was involved. But his name was always swirled around the fringes of this thing. And with Roger now cooperating, the question is, does the Mazzucca murder become part of a broader racketeering investigation?
That's like the murder that doesn't go away for George Borghese. Exactly. Even though he's never been charged, allegations have never been formalized, it's still right there. People still talk about it. Insiders are always worried, is he going to get charged with that case?
Yeah, I mean, and if it's a mob hit, and from what we know, it doesn't look like it was a mob hit, but if it's a mob hit, then the hierarchy of the mob could be held accountable, and that would be Borghese, that would be Merlino, all those guys. But, you know, what do you have besides Roger's word to determine how exactly that hit went down and who was involved and who okayed it, who approved it? You don't have much more than Roger. And the feds have been very reluctant to use Roger in a serious case up to this point.
Okay, so they give him a little trial run after he flips. They take FBI confessions from him, 302s they call him. He starts talking about a bunch of guys. One of the guys he's talking about is Trent Picard, who was a close ally of Joey Merlino's. He starts talking about Trent and some shootings and murders over in North Philly.
Yeah, and ultimately Picard is indicted and goes on trial, and Vella becomes a key witness in that case.
Roger Vella was just totally believable, and he just laid it all out.
And Trent Picard is convicted. I mean, so in that respect, Roger was an effective witness. But then, Joey Merlino was put on trial up in North Jersey, in Newark, for a murder, which Roger may or may not have known something about. The feds opt not to call him as a witness. And at that point, you know, he's been debriefed multiple times, and there's conflicting information, and also he apparently lied to the FBI.
He gets caught in a lie, right? Yeah. And the lie is a very big lie. It's not a small, little, tiny white lie. Yeah. It's a big lie.
At one point, while he's being debriefed, he says to the FBI, "I'm a made guy. I was at a making ceremony. I got formally initiated into the mob." And then a day or two later, he says, "Oh, wait a minute, never mind. I was lying about that." All of this is documented. It's all on paper. And the feds have to turn that over to defense attorneys. So if Roger Vella is going to be a witness, The defense has all of that information, and they use it to challenge his credibility. And in the Merlino case up in North Jersey, they opted not to put him on the stand, I think for that very reason. His credibility would become suspect.
And among the local wise guys, he's a running joke, basically.
Yeah.
Am I right?
They make all kind of references to him, and he's in a protected custody wing right now. And I don't think they worry so much about Roger because they really don't believe he would be able to hold up under a strong cross-examination.
And Roger was actually in the same facility with Ralph Natale at one point, so we're talking about witnesses who didn't do very well. The two of them were together in jail at one point.
Yeah, it was kind of a good fit, I think. I think a lot of people downtown would think that's a very good fit. It remains to be seen. I mean, Vella has also talked about the Ron Turchi hit and knows a little bit on the fringes of that. And I could see a situation where they try to bring him in as a limited witness. But once you put him up there, the defense is going to attack him. So, yeah, I think you got to weigh what he brings as opposed to what he could, how he could undermine your case by putting him up there.
So, yes or no, we see him again or we don't?
I think we do in a limited, as you mentioned, probably in a limited role.
All right, George, we're back out of the park and back to the city next week. We're going to talk about our final mob witness, but we're not going to say who it is.
Exactly. There's a long list of potential subjects, and we're going to pick the best of the worst.
Maybe two.
Maybe two.
All right.
A fun couple.
That's it for this week's version of Mob Talk. I'll see you next week.